Madam Secretary, I understand there are people, frankly, in both parties who have suggested that this investigation is about you. Let me assure you it is not. It is about what this country owes to those who risk their lives to serve it. Email after email after email about Libya and Benghazi. I don't care if he sent it by Morse code, carrier pigeon, smoke signals. The fact that he happened to send it by email is irrelevant.
That is a fantastic answer to a question nobody asked.
And my real fear is this double-track justice system that is rightly or wrongly perceived in this country.
But of all the universe of options, you looking at something with an open mind is not the one I picked.
Shorthand.
I don't care when it was written. I don't care whether it was longhand, cursive. I don't care about any of that. I want to know what it meant, Agent Struck.
If you are a private in the Army and you emailed yourself classified information, you will be kicked out. But if you are Hillary Clinton and you seek a promotion to Commander-in-Chief, you will not be.
I don't appreciate what was originally said being changed.
I don't appreciate having an FBI agent with an unprecedented level of animus working on 2 major investigations during 2016.
There's an old saying that justice delayed is justice denied. I think right now all of us are being denied. Whatever you got, finish it up, because this country is being torn apart.
Let's welcome back to Texas and 2nd Baptist Congressman Trey Gowdy.
And thank you for editing that. I think I may have used a couple of words that got me a phone call from my mom after some of that, so thank you for the editing process. I love being here. This is like home for me, so thank you for letting me come back.
Hey. Trey, tell them how we met and unfortunately how long we've known each other. So.
Well, my father gave me a choice. He said, you can go to the Citadel, which is a single-gender military school in South Carolina, or you can go to work. And at the time, I did not appreciate the virtues of single-gender education, getting up early, wearing a uniform, or having short hair. So I got my pastor to talk him into letting me go to Baylor. And I did not know a soul when my dad dropped me off in Waco, Texas. I still remember I had this wooden box with all my belongings in it. My dad pulls off in the pickup truck, and I'm waiting on Penland Hall to open, and the first person I met was Benjamin Blake Young. It just so happens that he had a South Carolina connection, so we hit it off, and then I tell people he was my roommate. I was not assigned to live in his room, but I spent more time in his room my freshman year. We were yelling at Ted Koppel on television more than anything else.
Yes.
So for you young people, television is something that it's in a box.
Yes.
And
it was black and white. Do you remember
it was black and white. But I thought you were the richest man I knew because nobody else had a television in their room.
It was loaded, man. Yeah, that's hilarious. Well, hey, Trey, people see that clip right there when you were in Congress, and they think, good night. That Trey Gowdy, he's a pit bull. Are you that way all the time? Is that just, you're always in that attack mode, always pugnacious? And
more like a Pomeranian, probably.
Yeah.
More like one of the little dogs you carry in your purse,
Yes.
I think. You caught, I was there 8 years, and that was probably 45 to 60 seconds of 8 years. So those issues I did care a lot about. I was a homicide prosecutor. I always viewed what happened in Libya as a homicide investigation. That's just how I viewed it. 4 people lost their lives. And to this day, I can't tell you their politics. I didn't care about their politics. But I was a little naive to view it as a homicide prosecution or investigation because everything in that town is politicized. Department of Justice I care very much about. The lady is blindfolded for a reason. She's not supposed to see the race, the gender, the political orthodoxy of whoever's in front of her. What you don't see is the other 99.9% of life up there where for the most part, all of us got along and we just found something in common to talk about. We didn't go to what we disagreed on. We actually went and found something we agreed on, and most of us got along really well most of the time.
Right, and a lot of people don't know that about you, is that you had friends, and still do, and on both sides of the aisle, and you often bring them on your show on Sunday night, and you guys discuss the issue and how we can move forward as a people.
Some of my worst days, both when I was there and, I've had bad days since I left, although not as many, I get just as many texts from people who would never vote for me. And I actually consider it a compliment that somebody is willing to be my friend, even though they would not vote for me. And I know that sounds weird, but they shouldn't vote for me. We have a different view of the size and scope of government. We have a different view of the role of government in our lives. They should not vote for me. But I would trust them with the most precious things I have in life. And so I actually consider it a compliment that they would be my friend, but yet they don't want me to be their voice in Washington.
Right.
It doesn't bother me one bit.
Right. Well, I know you know this, but we have an election coming up.
We
a few
do?
days. We do.
I've been so caught up with college football. I didn't know that.
That's the truth. So a lot of people are saying this is the most important election of our lifetime. And I feel like we hear that every 4 years.
Yeah, every election is the most important one because it's the only one you can do anything about. I've been hearing that probably since my father said it, I guess, when Carter ran the first time. And I mean, every time it can't be the most important. They're all important. I mean, this one is really consequential because the country is divided. It's a 50-50 country. I don't want to die in a 50-50 country. There's a reason we call ourselves the United States of America. So it is important, but so was the last one, and so was the one before that, and so will the next one be. This is the only one you can do anything about. So almost de facto, it is the most important one.
What do you think we can do as a church and as Christians throughout the United States to decrease that 50-50 divide, if anything?
You know, Ben, I had two things on my bucket list. Number one, don't die. That was the number one thing on my bucket list, don't die. The second thing on my bucket list was to take my wife to Israel. I went when I was 17, but she had never been. And so we went, and we are literally standing in the spot. You're the theologian, I'm not. But they said, this is the spot where Jesus asked, who do they say that I am? And my wife said, why don't you read the Bible while we're here? You read that passage. And then she said, no, you have the Bible turned upside down. Honey, you got to turn it the right way, and this is the verse. So
yeah, I believe that.
What I'm sitting there wondering is, what if that question were reversed? What if Jesus were to say, who do they say that you are? Who do your friends say that you are? Would your friends run to your faith, or would they run to your politics, or would they run to your college athletic preference? Who do people say that you are? So I like to ask, are you a Republican or a Democrat who attends church? Or are you a believer who participates in the political process? Your identity tells me a lot. How you view yourself, how you describe yourself. I'll give you Tim Scott's a perfect example.
Right.
I am a Christian who happens to be conservative, and oh, by the way, you may have noticed I am black. That is how he describes himself. But he starts with his faith. So if we don't want to die in a 50-50 country, I would do what Tim and I did, which is find someone who doesn't look like us, vote like us, think like us, and develop a relationship with them. It's hard to hate someone you know.
Yeah.
Number two, I would embrace grace. Grace for people that you disagree with. The notion that we would have fractured families sitting around the Thanksgiving table, that relationships would be broken. Like, I was a homicide prosecutor, Ben. That's worth getting upset about. You know, losing a loved one committing a crime against someone, that's worth getting upset about. The fact that this person votes in a different primary from the one that we do, I'm not saying be best friends, I'm just saying grace. And then I would like to see us engage a little more in persuasion and a little less in let me go find people who already believe exactly what I believe and hang out with them, because I've never learned anything from someone who doesn't know more than I do. I've never learned a thing.
Yeah. How'd you stay out of trouble those 8 years when you were in D.C.? I mean, you were in trouble, but you were out of trouble.
Stay out of trouble?
Yeah, how did you stay out of trouble?
Primarily, I hung around the Mormons and Tim Scott, and you're not going to get in any
Yeah.
trouble. I mean, when the most interesting thing is whether or not Jason Chaffetz is going to drink a cup of coffee or not. I mean, that's. I mean, I don't drink. I lived in my office. I was on the last plane to town and the first plane out of town. I don't even think I wore my pen my last 6 years.
Right.
It was never my identity.
Yeah.
I want people to say he was a good prosecutor and he was fair.
Yeah.
I don't care whether people even know that I was in Congress, honestly.
Right. So when I watched the first debate, my big takeaway from the first presidential debate between Biden and Trump was the whole golf debate, right? That was what captured me. It's, I know all the politics stuff, but the golf debate, who's the better golfer? And I don't know if you've played golf with Biden, but I know you've played with Trump. And is Trump good? And what is he like?
Good.
What is he like on the golf course, Trey?
He's a lot of fun. We all have friends in life who both provide the question and the answer. And so riding in the golf cart is a lot like that. Yes. He is going to ask the question, and then when you begin to answer it, he will provide the answer too. So there's not a lot of work to be done when you're riding in the golf cart with him.
Yeah.
He will take you to the top of a golf hole and say, is this the most beautiful golf hole you've ever seen? And you begin to say something complimentary about the golf hole, and then he answers it for you. So no heavy lifting. He is very good. I mean, it's hard to think of him as being 78 years old. Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm 60 and everything on me hurts. He was our age when we met, when we were born.
Right.
So the fact that he can still get around, we were partners, so, we won. Our opponents weren't very good. You see a different side of him. He's very generous in terms of, say Lindsey or Mick Mulvaney or somebody hit the ball in the water. He's very generous in saying, drop again. Somebody was talking, something happened in your backswing. What you see on television is not, but that's true with most politicians. I mean, every conversation I ever had with Barack Obama was about golf. Mm-hmm. Every one of them. Something's weird about golfers. It becomes the most important thing. I mean, there could be like world wars blazing, and President Obama would say, I'm struggling with my sand game. Do you have any way to get out of the bunkers? And I would say, speaking of bunkers, let's get in one right now because the world's on fire, and then I'll tell you how to get back out of it. Golf is kind of unifying, actually.
Yeah, it is.
In a weird way.
They need a 12-step group for golf, Gowdy. You ever think about that? Or you're not even at step one yet, so I don't know why am I talking to you.
I tell people you're better off taking up drugs. My wife says don't say that, but at least drug addicts don't talk about it beforehand, during, and afterwards. Golfers never stop talking about the round.
Yeah, that's true.
It is a relentless passion.
All right, speaking of issues that are truly important, let's talk about social media and especially how it's affecting the next generation. We talked about that recently and want you to share your thoughts on that.
Awful. I'm so glad you and I didn't grow up with it. You are really good at understanding how it impacts both young men and young women. My focus, probably because I have 3 sisters and a daughter and a wife, and I worry about what it does to young women. And this ideal of what other people perceive perfection to be, and the filters where otherwise really attractive people want to look perfect. And you're a young girl, and it's already a difficult time in your life, and you are looking at this standard of beauty that Helen of Troy can't meet. And I'm not surprised that the loneliness is up. I mean, think about it. We're more connected than we've ever been before, and yet loneliness is an epidemic. And depression and suicidal ideation. And I just, when you and I were growing up, we had to compare ourselves maybe to other guys in the class. Is that guy a better athlete than I am? Is he, is his hair better than ours? Which the course that would be no, but we would still do it. Now it's the whole world.
Yeah.
And
In other words, you're comparing yourself to the whole world. The kids are.
Well, there's always going to be
Right.
somebody smarter and cuter and funnier. But once you get to know that person, they got problems too. But you don't see it on social media. Everything looks idyllic on social media. It looks perfect. I think it's destructive. I really do.
Yeah.
I'm also not on it.
Right.
Like Scotty Scheffler, who I think is the world's greatest golfer. I don't think he could. I'm not sure he knows what X is or what used to be Twitter. He's not on it. You'd be surprised at the number of highly successful people that have said no to all of that.
Yeah. Speaking of women and attacks on women in our culture, I think social media is one attack, but I think the whole transgender movement is another attack, especially in sports. I know last weekend you had Riley Gaines on your show. Tell us about who she is and how that went.
She is an elite level swimmer. I mean, like one of the best in the world. And there are hundreds and hundreds of men who can swim a faster time in her best event. The analogy she actually gave that caught my attention even more, there are Olympic level female sprinters. Olympic level, the best in the world. And there are high school boys who can run a faster 100 or 200 time. It's just not fair. It is not. I actually, if you can keep a secret, I watch more women's college basketball than I do men. South Carolina is good.
That's right.
Kim now is at LSU. I like to pull for her. I like to pull for Baylor. So there's a purity and an authenticity. There's one woman on South Carolina's basketball team that can dunk a basketball. One. And she's like a freak of nature.
Right.
She's 6'3". Most women can't dunk a basketball. Find me a college men's team where everybody can't dunk a basketball. It's not, you don't see women trying to go play men's sports. You see men trying to go play women's sports. And I just think it is unfair to women, and frankly, I am a little surprised that more women aren't critical of it. I think it is going to adversely impact the authenticity, the beauty of women's college athletics.
Yeah. Which kind of dovetails into the whole issue of education in our country right now. I feel like that is a massive weakness in our country right now as far as the basic education, the basic reading, writing skills that kids are not learning in public schools.
Yeah, every time I hear the phrase book ban, I think the best book ban in the world is not teaching people how to read. The number of people who cannot read. Now, I'm a little different. I'm probably in the minority. I was married to a public school teacher. She poured her heart and soul into her job. But I'll bet you I learned to read, albeit slowly, because of what happened at home. I don't hold the teachers responsible. I think parents are responsible for producing educated children. I don't hold the teacher. Now, my parents probably could have used some help with fractions, but my father is the one who made me read the dictionary. He's the one who still to this day corrects my grammar. He's the one that said you can watch 30 minutes of television a week, not a day, a week. And so I sat there and would read the encyclopedia as a kid growing up. I mean, I had to do something. So my father viewed it as his job to produce educated children to his fellow citizens. Nowadays, we blame the teachers. But teachers are now, they're social scientists and they're guidance counselors, and they have to provide meals, and I'm fine with all of that. But ultimately, it is the parents' responsibility to produce educated children, and they should do it in concert with teachers. I guess it was Madison that said this whole thing only works with an educated, moral citizenry. It only works.
Yep.
This self-governance only works if you're educated and you're moral. And I won't speak to the morality part because only God can see people's hearts, but I can tell you from an education standpoint, I don't think we're headed in the right direction.
No, we're not. Yeah. When you were in D.C., and even now on your show, you have a chance to interact with a lot of influential people. I know that one of the folks you had a chance to meet and get to know was actually a singer, Bono, who's the lead singer of U2. Tell us about Bono and your interactions with him and what you took away from that.
I refer to him as an Irish poet. I think he would appreciate being referred to as that more than arguably the lead singer of the greatest rock band that's ever been. My friends that were important in D.C., I was never important, but I had friends that were. They knew that I liked him. I'm very thankful that John Boehner didn't know who U2 was. So Boehner would say, you can come meet with him if you want to. I don't know who he is. He wanted to go meet with some guy named Frank Sinatra, which would have been a challenge. So Paul Ryan was into music that I've never heard of before. So he wasn't as interested in meeting with Bono. I met with him once. I hope my wife's not watching. Maybe the most charismatic person I've ever been around in my life. He knows more about the subject matter than anybody in the room. He has this self-deprecatory sense of humor. I mean, you gotta imagine the guy's dressed in all leather with rose-colored sunglasses. So this whole thing about making a good first impression, I mean, I'm sitting here thinking, how many cows had to give their lives for you to get dressed this morning? And you got on rose-colored sunglasses, but we're inside. But when he started talking, he has a passion for people that are less fortunate. He has a passion for the continent of Africa. And the last time we got together, he wrote a song about Judas Iscariot called The End of the World.
Yes.
And I wanted to ask him about that. And of course, the media is all huddled up outside the speaker's office. And Bono is one of the most famous people in the world. He's got all these staff around him, and they're all coming up. I know the game's being played. They're trying to rescue him, but he didn't want to go. He kept saying, I'm fine, leave me alone. He wanted to talk about Jesus. So I walk out, and all the D.C. media says, what were you in there talking to Bono about? And I said, Jesus. That was the one-word answer, Jesus. And they had a shocked look on their face, but that literally is what he wanted to talk about. His view of what Jesus would do if he were here right now, who he would be ministering to, who he would be hanging out with. So yeah, I talked to arguably the most famous living musician in the world, and he wanted to talk about a Jewish carpenter that didn't make it to age 34.
I love that. Tell us about this election. I know this time of the year we get really hyped up in our culture, not just in the culture, but also in the church world as well. And we just put so much on who wins in a few days from now. How would you address that as far as Christians are concerned?
Well, I mean, people may have been surprised not only that President Obama won, but he won with some pretty big numbers. And if you are at a spot in life where you don't know anyone who voted for him, then I would say the best way to understand how he won is go talk to somebody who voted for him. If you don't have anyone in your life that voted for him, you should go find someone. The same was true in 2016. There were people that were absolutely stunned and shocked that Donald Trump won the Electoral College. And I said, well, the best way not to be stunned or shocked is go talk to someone who actually, there's a reason they voted for him. Go find out what that reason is. So when you live in these cocoons and you know, your life revolves around just, you know, being validated or ratified in what you already believe, then you're going to be shocked and disappointed. You're going to say, how in the world could that happen? We're a 50-50 country. So that's the bad news. The good news is I don't think the American people are 50-50. I flew out here. I guarantee you I had a choice, the person sitting beside me on the plane. What we all do is we go find what we have in common. Children, grandchildren, sports, something that we can survive the next 2.5 hours and have some commonality. Politics just does away with what we have in common and says, let's find what we disagree on and make a ton of money off of it and get people angry and get them agitated at night and get them thinking the world's about to end. The American people, we just survived a hurricane. It's one thing to see neighbors helping neighbors. It's another thing to see strangers helping strangers without regard to race, socioeconomic status. I never once, I was in line for probably 3 hours to fill up the car with gas. No one once said, hey, what's your politics? We had a common desire to survive. So I think the American people are in a better spot than our politics is. We just have to get our elected leaders to be more like us and us be less like them, if that makes sense.
It's good. Well, Trey, I wanted you to know that we here at Second Baptist love you. We pray for you. We believe in you when you were serving in D.C. and now that you're have this show that's impacting so many people, that we really believe in you and believe in what you do to make a difference for the Lord and also for our country. And we appreciate you being here today because you're an incredibly busy guy. So
well,
thank you for being here.
I'm going to move my letter here then because no one at my church has ever said that about me before. So I'll see y'all next Sunday. I'll be sitting right down there.
You got a deal.
Thank you.
Trey Gowdy.